Welcome back to the Boundary Corner podcast on a walk-off Wednesday. That's
Yes,
right, I said it.
sir. Yes, sir. Walk off
I'm Curtis Miller.
Wednesday. I'm Brian Siegler. Yeah, just walked it off there. Hokies baseball against Liberty. Got two in the ninth after going scoreless for 8 innings. That's the way you. It's one of those sluggish midweek games, and if you can pull those out, way to go.
It's as our buddy Matt Neal always said, it's midweek college baseball. You never know what is going to happen. And tonight they couldn't score, and they get two in the ninth, get the bases loaded. Good win going into a big series, which we'll discuss in a little while. But buddy, happy Hump Day! Welcome back to the first time we've had a show solo since February.
Yeah. We haven't ridden solo in a while, man. I almost forgot how to do it. I think we're gonna
Yeah,
be all right though.
let's see how this goes. Over the last 3 months, everybody that's come on as guests, our buddy Robbie Compton, the White Vic, David Cunningham with Tech Sideline, Jordan Williams, which got a great story about him I want to share in a second. Who else? Mike McDaniels, all
Yeah.
you guys who came on, awesome times as always. But I want to hit real quick, Brian, about Jordan Williams. He was on with us, and a few weeks later, he ran a camp down at Cox. I think he mentioned it during the show. If he didn't, he definitely was pushing it out on social media. And a girl I went to college with, her son got to go to this camp, and she was just raving about how awesome it was, how awesome Jordan was. He had guys like T. Higgins down there helping out with the drills. And it made me even happier that we had him on the show just a few weeks before that.
Yeah, I mean, he was hyping that up on social media a lot. I know I retweeted it and shared it out. So it sounds like it was a big hit down there. And, kudos for him for running that well and being so personal with everybody that showed up for that.
It's awesome, man. Just doing what he can, and obviously he got drafted or signed with the Dolphins after the draft, which is great for him. But man,
Yeah, he
tonight,
talked about liking that Florida weather, so he's back down there in Florida. But
I mean, wasn't he training in Miami?
yeah, he was training down in Florida. I don't know if it was Miami, but he was training in
Either
Florida.
way, he didn't have to move too far. So great for him and a lot of the other guys we'll mention in a little while as well. But Brian, we have so many things to break down. Let's hit some kind of news and notes headlines before we get into the deep stuff. And let's start with this. The Fuller brothers officially have a room now in the Virginia Tech football facility, the defensive back room. Are you shocked by that?
Not shocked at all.
But Vince, Corey, Kyle, and Kendall make I'm guessing, a pretty hefty donation to Virginia Tech to um, get that name on there, because you don't pay six figures for a room. You usually pay a
No.
lot more, and it's awesome what that family's meant to the university, to the football program, that happened.
Yeah, it's a big moment for them, and it just goes to reinforce, the families, the brothers that end up playing for the Hokies, and it just goes to reinforce that for future generations. Now, they look at that Fuller room, that's not named after one brother. That's named after in honor of all four of them. So
Four brothers. And then one of the statements that Kyle said, talking about Coach Pry and the entire staff had made a very concerted effort to connect with the entire alumni base, and we feel welcome in Blacksburg. It's awesome to hear that. Pry made a comment about the tremendous contribution that financially they made to the football program. Um, and then this comes out a few days after the Reach for Excellent goal. Brian, there's a $400 million goal.
yep,
5 years is the expectation, right?
yeah, it was a 5 year time frame put on the to reach the goal for the fundraising.
In your wildest dreams, did you think they would hit halfway right at a year after announcing?
I did not. I did not think we'd be having a Bon Jovi situation already. We're halfway there.
We're halfway there. It's wild. A $400 million campaign, 200 million. The press was released was just after the spring game on the 28th of February, a few days after our last podcast. And I mean, it's the bump, right? I think it's the bump.
Yeah.
I mean, this is it's a athletic wise reaching thing, but I think having what we've had with Coach Pry come on, how he's been on social media, how active he's been in the community, how active he's been at fundraising events. When people get that, people are a hell of a lot more willing to open up their wallets and their checkbooks
Yep.
for a campaign like this.
What I'm interested to see if the numbers ever come out is how much did donations pick up end of November, first part of December. And I'm not just saying that as Fuente compared to Pry. I'm saying that as the momentum behind athletics as a whole between Pry getting hired and the things he's done since he's been here, the run for the men's basketball and women's basketball, and now everything that the spring sports are doing with softball and baseball, which I know we're about to get to. But I think if you look at kind of the way things are going with all the sports, and I don't want to leave out wrestling either.
No, or
Wrestling.
basketball.
Yeah, I mentioned them. Yeah, yeah.
It was like not to be joking about like serious situations, but it's like we're in the middle of the ocean. Everything was calm, and this thing underneath the ocean called Brent Pry erupted, and it's just been this huge tsunami of momentum, like you said, through the winter sports, and now we're into the spring sports, and they're carrying it. And I mean, let's flip to that, Brian. Let's talk about the softball team. I mean, they're already the regular season champs.
Yep.
They're without a shadow of doubt going to have a regional in Blacksburg. And man, you got to kind of think they're number 2 in the country.
Yeah.
Unless how did you say it the other day about them not being able to host a super regional?
A whole lot of teams behind them got to do some good shit, and they've got to pretty much lose immediately.
Yeah.
Early and often. It's going to be, I mean, regional host seems locked at this point. Super regional host seems very likely.
Yeah. Because you sit here and the only teams behind them, and I'm looking at the USA Today rankings, Florida State, Arkansas, Alabama, UCLA, Oklahoma State, Arizona State. That's the top 8. Duke's 9. They beat Duke in a series. They beat FSU in a series. What do you value more? So let's say they don't have a great tournament. Do you value Duke or Florida State potentially getting hot in the tournament and doing something? Or do you value a regular season, which essentially that's the super regional is? It's a regular season best of 3 matchup. You win 2, you go to the College World Series.
Yeah. I think you kind of honor that format that you're playing in. I mean, we talk about this all the time with baseball too, with the whole wild card play in. That I don't like that shit. So I'm all about the format is the format. So I think you would ride that direction, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think you would too. Yeah, Brian does not like the one playoff format. He's always objected for 2 to 3.
Everything else in baseball is a series, but then you have this one game for whatever reason is a one and done. The only other scenario that would be in is a tiebreaker to get into the said playoffs anyway. That's the only other scenario that you even have this in play, and you're going to make that if you want a team to be in the postseason, put them in the postseason and play it normal. Play at least a modified version of a series. Whether
Brian
it's
just
like
wants 2 or 3.
Yeah,
2 or 3 game series. 3 games.
Give me a doubleheader and a travel for the third one.
There you go. And if you're traveling, you're going to wherever they're going to play stadium. You don't give the worst team a home game. That's my opinion. Oh, one other thing we forgot to mention with softball. First of all, shout out Mackenzie Lauder, hometown girl, where we grew up, catcher. Her dad taught us.
Yep.
We went to school with her sister. So
yep.
One other thing, Keely Richard, shocker, pitcher of the year in the ACC after going 15-0.
Who could have seen that coming?
Not me.
Everyone.
Question is she going to get any national accolades? I mean, I think she's guaranteed a All American. I don't even think you blink at that. As dominant as she can be.
I mean, if not, that's a big time snub.
Maybe that's what we need then. A little snub going into the little snub going into the into playoff mode. That might be the thing to do. All right, we just mentioned it at the top of the program a few minutes ago. Baseball walks off, beats Liberty. Baseball is now. Let me get it up here. What are they? 34-6, 34-8, something ridiculous. Oh, here we go. No, 34-10. Excuse me.
Yep.
Off a little bit there.
We got seven games left in the regular season.
7 games left. You've got a huge series this weekend with Louisville. Louisville's number 7 in the country by Baseball America, Tex 4. We just mentioned it a couple seconds ago, Brian. I think regional. They're one of the best 16 teams in the country. They're going to get a regional berth, regardless.
Yep.
Regardless.
Yeah, I don't think that's I don't think that seems outlandish. Like I said, I think some serious stuff would have to happen in the coming couple weeks for that to be in jeopardy. And you talked about a big series against Louisville. I think that's going to be really the biggest series down the stretch for them to close it out. If they can get that series, I feel really good about going ahead and stamping them for that regional host for sure.
Regional host tour conference tournament at the end of the month. It'll be on Labor Day weekend. I think it's probably going to be some Hokies down there. It's going to be down in Charlotte at Truist Field. So for those who are in the Charlotte area, I mean, I've had the opportunity to go to an ACC baseball tournament. It's a lot of fun. Yeah. It's a lot of fun to go to. You're seeing, you see a lot of talent all over the field, regardless if you're going to see the Hokies play or if you're going to see the or any other team play. There is a ton of guys who are going to be in the MLB from the ACC in the upcoming year. So definitely worth your time if you're in the Charlotte area and got nothing else going on that weekend.
Well, there's a bunch of Hokies in the Charlotte area. It's not that bad of a drive from the Roanoke and Blacksburg area down to Charlotte. So if you can get there, get there.
If you can get there, get there. If you can't, hopefully the ACC network will show the games. But we know how funky that network is. They'll be like blacking out games showing replays of the Pitt spring game or something.
But hey, we got the game tonight, so
tonight?
Yeah. There is a chance.
There is a chance. All right, Brian. Baseball, softball, knocked out. Let's talk about basketball because basketball has had a hell of a last few weeks. Kind of revamping the roster after losing some guys, and let's look at kind of the biggest name per se coming out is John Camden transferring in from Memphis. Camden was pretty much a 4-star guy coming out of high school, a top 150 player, 6'8", 205. What do you think? I mean, is this just Keeve light from his style and everything?
No, I think he's got a little bit more versatility here, and the question is going to be: is he going to be, the 3, the 4, the 5? I don't know how it's going to look. We're going to talk a little bit more about some other guys that might fill in those spots, but Camden's the guy that gives you kind of that versatility. Can do a little bit in the front end, the back court. Could be a big 3. Could play the 4. And might give you 5 in a pinch, depending on if you want to go small. So, it does give some flexibility with how Mike Young makes the lineups there.
It's very, very true. And, we needed some, losing Keeve was big, right? You lose a score. Well, they go out, look at the lower level parts of D1, And they go out to Wright State and get Grant Basile, the 6'9", 225-pound forward um, out of Wisconsin. Last year averaged 18 and a half a game, 8.5 boards a game, shot 50% from the field, and did it against some good competition too. You know, they lost to Arizona in that opening game. He still scored 21, grabbed 5 boards, 3 blocks, and he shot, 40% from the field against a really good Arizona team. So he's coming from a small school, but he's shown that he can play with the bigger guys.
Yeah, he's shown that he can play with the bigger guys, and he's shown that he can do a lot of different things. He's got a similar skill set to Aluma, but I think he's a little bit more willing to bang in the post. So there might be a little more rebounding edge there with him on the court. Not probably not quite as good stepping out, but we'll see what we can get from him. But he's part of this big revamping of the front court that Mike Young needed to do in order to be ready for this upcoming year, with Mutts kind of still hanging in the balance there and Aluma already declaring for the draft.
It's very true. And then just yesterday, they get one more front court. Now, I'm hoping I'm pronouncing his name right. Malai Jail Poteet. I know I'm pronouncing the last name right. 6'9", 260 pounds, transferring from Rice, from Reidsville, North Carolina. So he actually went to high school down in Burlington. So very probably familiar with Virginia Tech. Last year, right at 8 points a game, grabbed over 4 boards a game in, limited minutes. Only averaged about 13 minutes a game, but that's a big body down low. And it feels like there were games this year we were missing, not necessarily a 7-footer, but just a big body that could, give some fouls, make guys have to work hard. And to me, he kind of fills that role when they want to go with a more defensive, maybe not a scoring presence at the 5.
Yeah, I don't know if he's going to end up being the starter at the 5 or if he's going to be coming off the bench and kind of just playing with some of the matchups there to give guys a blow. But I definitely think he's got some potential here. He averaged 13 minutes. We saw when his minutes went up, his scoring went up. So this isn't just a more minutes is getting more production, which is a good sign, especially if he's asked to even do up to 18 or 20, even if he's coming off the bench. But it's a big body. It's a guy that down low that can get some rebounds for you. I don't know if he's going to end up having more of a Gasson or a Big John type role in the offense, or if they're going to try to do something different with him. But I think it's a solid pickup, and again reinforces that front court.
It does. I definitely don't think he's a starter. I definitely think he's a bench guy, barring matchup. You take somebody like Bakat with Carolina. There you go. Is he still probably going to score some points on him? Yeah, but is he going to have to work a little harder at times? Absolutely. And then you've got 5 fouls to give. So, I see that. Of this, I think Basile's probably going to be the guaranteed starter just because Camden got no play last year. You got to figure out exactly what he is. He was a high-ranked guy coming out, but he doesn't have that experience like Basile does.
Yeah.
And what were we thinking today? Padula's definitely the point guard, right?
Yep.
Is Maddox or is Couture your 2?
I like Maddox at the 2, and then depending on what we find out we can get from Camden, either start with Camden and use Couture as kind of your 2-3 pivot player off the bench, or you can use you get Couture in there and use Camden as the pivot from the 3-4 as a sub off the bench there, and then you can shift Couture to the 2 when Camden comes on.
When you need to. And you've got Ward, too. You've got guys like Rodney Rice coming in.
Yeah.
I think what I'm already putting in my head is the first couple months, be patient. Because I think last year, a lot of us, and I'm one of them, I was not patient when we were losing those games. I wasn't. But I think as I got into it, what Mike Young was trying to do is find his best rotations, his best combos. And once he got it figured out, right, that's when the run from January to March happened. And obviously, when you're bringing in what, five new guys, six new guys,
Yep.
uh, I mean, even a couple of them who are very highly touted freshmen, you've got to figure out what they're going to do. Now, what's going to help everybody if this can happen is, we're waiting on Justin Mutz.
Yep.
You know, if Justin Mutz comes back, I will feel a hell of a lot better about this team early than later in the season.
Yeah, because you're talking about it's not just Couture being the kind of the big leader on the floor out the
Yeah.
gate. Um, and when we talk about starting lineups, that might be the difference between having Couture as the starter is Mutz coming back. If Mutz doesn't come back, if Mutz does come back, I should say, you have less of a need to have Couture as your starter on the floor because he is going to be the de facto leader in that group if Mutz isn't coming back. But with Mutz coming back, it gives you more flexibility with your lineup. If Cam is a little bit further along, you don't necessarily need that leader on the floor in that starting unit out the gate. So
Absolutely. Now,
that's going to be that's going to be I think the interesting point is that yeah, if Mutz does come back, I think that would be a big boost for that team because again you get more matchup flexibility there and lineup flexibility.
well, definitely lineup flexibility. You probably, yeah, the lineup flexibility is the big key on that. Gasson is to the portal. I think with the pickup of Poteet yesterday, I think Gasson's probably not going to come back. That's just my feel. Um, and then Keeve got invited to the G League tryout, which is good for him. He stayed around an extra season. Where last year he didn't get any invites. He's worked his way up to the G League tryouts. Definitely think he has a chance maybe to eventually make a roster. If not, I think Kiva Luna's going to go overseas and make a lot of money playing Euro League basketball.
Yeah,
That's good for him.
yeah. I mean he's a solid player. Has a lot of versatility in his game. Able to step back, take the three. Can do a lot of things in the post down low. So hopefully he can catch on somewhere and make it happen.
Absolutely. All right, Brian. Baseball, basketball, softball. We talked some money. Dude, if I told you 3 weeks ago that today, June 11th, 2022, that the Hokies would be ranked 21st in 247's recruiting rankings, what would you have said to me?
I would have said you're full of shit.
And I would have been like, I'm probably in full of shit because that don't sound right. But, guys, if y'all been paying attention, what a whirlwind getting 6 recruits in 3 weeks. And man, they are from all over the place. And let's start with the first guy that committed not long after the spring game from right here in the RVA, just down the street from me, Jason Abbey from Douglas Freeman High School, 6'4", 215, edge player, ranked as an 84 by 247 Sports. Um, this kid, I had somebody tell me they talked with the Freeman coach not long after this happened. This kid just started playing football, and he's picking up this much momentum. I mean, were you able to even find any tape on him? Is there anything out there? Because he's just played a couple years. And I mean, last year would have been his junior year.
There's some out there, but there's not a ton. I mean, he's a tall, lean type of defensive end edge presence. You think probably in terms of build similar to a Barno. He's right now 6'4", 215. Probably going to need some weight to be able to work into a two deep role in this defense. But you know, it's one of those things where out the gate when you're trying to build rosters like this and fill in some spots, if you can't recruit top end talent, recruit guys that have good size and have good speed, and he's got some good speed.
Absolutely. Super long wingspan. Did the athleticism show on the tape that you saw?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it definitely pops. You can tell he's an athlete.
Awesome. So you get one, you stay in state, you get kind of a under the radar guy from a school not known to put out a lot of big products, but from the way it looked, they hit deep run, they hit Godwin. I'm assuming they probably stopped by Freeman at some of those blitzes and hey,
Yeah,
let's show you this kid. Like that kid, yeah. Here's an offer.
yeah. They made the little param circle there.
Durham Circle, exactly. All right. So they weren't done in the state of Virginia yet. They go right in the back door and they actually get a kid who came over from Europe, from Germany. There's some jokes out there about German offensive linemen, but with a name like Hans Hammer
Yeah,
at 6'6.5" and 275 pounds, he was not rated by 247 when when everything was coming down. They got a hold of his tape. They already put him in the top 20 in Virginia and already gave him an 87.
yeah,
Did you get to see some of his stuff yet? Because I know he's at a private school down at North Cross, which is a private school down in Roanoke.
yeah. I watched some of that. I mean, he looks like a guy that is kind of that classic underrated Wisconsin style offensive lineman. You see why Rudolph would have targeted a player like him. I think he's still a little raw, but I think he's got good size and he's showing some promise out the gate. And I think Rudolph just needs to buff out the edges there, and he's going to be a solid pickup.
All right. Can I say something? I remember texting you, or we talked about this over the phone when he committed. I think the 6'6" is legit. I do think that. I think that's why Joe Rudolph pulled the trigger on him. I think he went and saw this kid in person down in Roanoke and he's legitimately 6'6". He's legitimately 275 pounds. I can work with this.
Yep.
And, you know, again, it's an in-state pickup. That's out of the country. That's one of those weird back and forth things. But when you see that happen where a guy doesn't get ranked and he gets put just at an 87, what does that tell you these analysts are seeing when they look at him?
Well, it tells you that number one, he's probably been under offered based on what they're seeing and based on some of the buzz that's coming out recently regarding that player. It's not just okay. Well, he committed to Tech. He's got to at least be an 85, right, or something like that.
Yeah.
There's some other things that go into a bump like that. Usually, a guy commits to a Power Five that doesn't have many Power Five offers. That's like a de facto 84,
Yes,
maybe an
it is.
85. Yeah, you don't bump a guy to 87 off that.
No.
So they're definitely seeing something else. And you mentioned the 6'6", so 247 has him 6'6.5".
Half.
The fact that they added the half tells me that he's at least a full 6'6", because you don't throw. If he was trying to bullshit, he would have thrown it to 6'7".
If he was bullshitting, he would have. It would have been bigger than that. So
Yeah.
it's pretty awesome to hear that. All right, this is an offensive lineman podcast. We've always made that point clear. They pick up another commitment from an offensive lineman, Gabriel Arena, listed 6'5", 285. Bishop McDivitt, school up in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. We know Brent Pry's love for Harrisburg. Bishop McDivitt is a private Catholic school up there with a pretty good football reputation. And if you're wondering why I'm saying pretty good football reputation, J.D. McCoy went to this school. Noah Spence. Noah Spence was a huge recruit back a few years ago. LaRon McCoy went to the school. So this is one of those, they're going to put out good players, and it doesn't take every 20 years.
Yep.
Offers
And
from Bowling Green and places like that. What did the Gabriel Arena tape tell you? 85, 3-star, about 247.
Yeah, I mean, again, another guy with pretty good size, a little raw, but the thing that jumped off for me is this one's got a motor, and he's got a nasty streak, and I think that's going to be good for this offensive line. And again, this is kind of another guy that is very much in the Rudolph footprint there, right?
Yep.
This is the type of player that he tends to recruit. He's found a bunch of diamonds in the rough and developed them into NFL talent. So hopefully, Arena's another one of them. And when we look at Bishop McDivitt, you get Arena, but I know we're also taking a look at their running back too, Marquise Williams. So there's some other talent I think we're looking at from McDivitt that could potentially come into play down the road in this class as well. So
Oh yeah, and a lot of what's going on right now is the setups to get in line for other players, and it's being discussed all over Twitter and group chats and things we're a part of. When you take someone from Bishop, when you start trying to get your inroads and keep underrated local kids at home, it's kind of big. And you talk about Brian. What was the name? You talking about Marquise Williams?
yeah,
Yeah, I mean, it's a setup. Marquise Williams is a top 5 player in the state of Pennsylvania. He's a top 247 player. Every move, we're in an era. We're not in there. We're with a staff that understands to get to point C, you need to start working through A and B. You can't just jump to C all of a
yep.
sudden.
Yeah,
So
it's I know we talked about it a little bit. Jason Abbey is the anomaly here. What we're seeing with a lot of these recruits that we've gotten, even though they're not necessarily high 3 or 4-star players, they're from schools that have a rich history of putting out collegiate and NFL talent.
and the next one that committed, exact same way. Dante Lovett and DeMatha.
Yep.
If you basically collegiate basketball, collegiate football, DeMatha puts out a ton of each. He is 3-star 87. But the way they were talking about him as he was leading up to, he's one of these kids that could take a massive, massive jump in his senior season.
Yeah, big jump could be coming for him. Really talented. I think he might end up at safety, but I think he could play corner as well. Um, if we were rating him probably as a safety, he'd be higher out the gate.
Okay.
That's my opinion. I think he'd have a higher rating if you were rating him just as a safety. Um, but yeah, I think he definitely could be in line for a bump. I think he's one of the guys that he's gotten some look, but I think with a good senior season, he could really get a bump and probably be either he definitely going to be in that high 3-star range, could be in the 4-star range.
Yeah, and taking a look at DeMatha with the top 12, including Dante Lovett, they have 2 more. They have the top player in the state of Maryland, and they've got the number 9 player in the state of Maryland. Also, some to keep an eye on as well. St. Francis Academy, who Pry was able to hold on to 2 of our better recruits last year, also has a guy in the top 5 for defensive line. So, and then another guy in the top 15. So just continue to keep thinking about that. Love is 6'1", 185. If that's his true size, he doesn't really have to come in and do too much weight gain to play.
Especially if they start him at corner initially. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
yeah.
a little bit of weight gain, but you can play undersized safety if you get good technique. That's
We're not talking about a big amount either.
No, not a big amount either. All right, so we were sitting here last night, at least I was, all of a sudden Brent Pride drops his signal, and everybody's like,
Who is it? Who was it?
"Who was it? Who is this?" And a guy I think a lot of people have been expecting to commit to Virginia Tech at some point this spring, summer, and that's Marcel Baylor, 6'3", 195 out of Radford High School, 3-star 86. Um, keep the local guys who have development potential. Keep them in
Yep.
state. Keep them
Got
coming.
development potential. I think there's some real upside with him. He's already got a good build coming out of high school. We showed him a lot of love. The videos are out there of him arriving on campus, and the love that was shown out for him. And I think we were talking about early on. We thought he might be one of the first ones to jump in the boat.
True.
With how far along he was early in the process. I'm glad to see that we closed the deal there, at least in terms of the verbal commitment there. So
Yeah.
let's keep it moving because we still had one more.
We still had one more on Baylor though, and back on Lovett. Lovett's primary recruiter was Derek Jones. Secondary was Pearson Prelude. Marcel's primary was Pearson. So for Pearson, and I know he definitely has a great relationship with Radford High School, coaching there for a few years. But to get Pearson's feet wet, get him a couple wins early, with a guy with his personality, his football knowledge, a big old ring to walk in. Actually, a lot of rings because the time he played here, plus the Super Bowl and all those years spent in the NFL, he has something to walk around with.
Yep.
But to Brian's point, we were not done. 4 p.m. today, a quarterback from a Georgia powerhouse
Yep.
drops it. Dylan Whittaker, if I'm pronouncing his name wrong, sorry. 3-star out of Buford High School, who were state champs last year. Um, they talk about multi-sport athlete, runs track, plays baseball, clocked at a 4.5 at the Elite 11 back in 2022, 37-inch, 4.31 short vertical. T back in 21 when he was the backup, won a state title. This guy's coming from a pedigree program, and he's athletic as hell.
Yeah, and word is he can sling the ball a little bit too. Definitely unpolished, I think a little bit in that area, but has the cannon to get the ball down the field and can make all the throws that you want him to make. I don't think he's as much of a project as a couple of the other quarterbacks that we've seen lately.
Yeah.
That have similar athletic traits, big arm. I think he's a little bit more game ready, and I think he matches what we're trying to do on offense maybe a little better than some of the guys that have come through in the past who weren't necessarily good scheme fits, even though they had some physical tools.
It's very true. And you talk about kind of being game ready. Even in a backup role last year, he got a chance to play as their change of pace back, is what they listed here as his background. He completed over 60% of his passes for close to 650 yards and 7 touchdowns. That's pretty good for a backup. Usually you're hoping if you got a change of pace guy, just can you throw 50%? Can you just get 50%?
Don't fuck it up. Get some good runs. Hand the ball off.
So it's pretty awesome that it's in. We're in the top 20. We've already said it. Top 35 or better this year, and sort of a rebuild would be great to get this kind of momentum going in May, because we're 3 weeks out from when camp start.
Yep.
If we can get one more between now and that first camp in June, you're talking about going in with 8 guys, and that would be a big momentum, because then you're going to get probably some elite talent coming in and the coaches to be able to make the sell.
Yeah, a bunch of official visits are pegged for those camps in June as well, surrounding those camps. So I think that's going to be big for a lot of these players, getting them in, getting them on campus. Some of the ones that we're waiting to pull the trigger on, seeing what they can do in these drills against maybe potentially bigger, stronger talent. I think that's going to be big for them. And yeah, like I said, June could be a really big month. After we kind of kicked off May pretty good as well. So like I said, we're not expecting big moves this year. I think right now this is a fill the roster where you need to fill the roster.
Yep.
with solid talent, go out, develop them, and win some games in 22, and
Yep.
then you got something to sell on the road for next year.
Yep. That's the big key. It's do I expect maybe us to get one or two 4 stars this cycle? Yeah. One or two. I think we're going to pick off. I think we've got enough good recruiters in the building. Do I expect it to be 8 or 9? No. Unless, unless something crazy happens and we're sitting here in November saying, hey, we're 7-1.
Yeah,
Are you bleeping kidding me? Like, that's when you could flip that on to having a really good season.
yeah.
Um, but I wanted to discuss one other thing, Brian. Brent Pry from day one has been preaching the 6 hour radius, the 6 hour radius, the 6 hour radius. Dylan Whittaker is the furthest player from his hometown to Blacksburg. Do you know how long that drive is?
Tell me, man.
5 hours, 55 minutes. The
Just shaved it.
hour
Just
radius.
shaved it.
The 6 hour. But think about the rest of the guys. You've got, Abby here in Richmond, 3 hours. You got Lance Williams and Alcoa. It's about a 4.5 hour drive. Hammers in Roanoke. That's right there. Baylor's in Raptors, right there. Arena in Harrisonburg, what, 4.5 hours? DeMatha,
Yep.
about 4. He said that was his plan, and he has stuck to it thus far.
Yeah. And I like that we're not ignoring the states next to us in either direction. This isn't just, let's touch the schools in the states that we've had a history with. Yeah, we're doing that, but we're tapping into some areas in that footprint that we haven't historically been doing well at, particularly Pennsylvania. We've already done somewhat well there. We got a DeMatha kid in a battle against Maryland.
We beat Maryland for a kid in their backyard. You always talk about it. Those are the wins we need to take 80% of the time.
Yep.
Take those 80% of the time. You start doing that and getting players like a kid of Lovett's caliber who is an 87, who's, to me, that's a higher 3. That's not a high 3, an 88 or 89, but that's a higher 3. It's more than the mid 3 to me. But you're beating Maryland for them. Now, the next couple, like you always talk about, if we have to go against NC State for a kid, or like trying to throw another name out there, or South Carolina. And
I mean, even Wake at this point.
Yeah, go win those 4 out of 5 times.
Yeah, win the battles that you can win. You're not going to always. I mean, even in the regional footprint, you're not always going to beat UNC or Penn State, but you need to pretty much all the time beat NC State, beat Duke, beat Wake, beat Maryland.
True. Very true. Beat Pitt.
Beat Kentucky.
Beat Kentucky.
If Kentucky's in play for somebody.
In Louisville and places like that. That's the ones you got to win 80% of the time. All right, Brian. Before we start looking at the portal and some other things, we are going to take a quick pause for a message from our digital partners.
As we take a quick break, we'd like to tell you about getting your free website report from our digital partner, Grassroots Digital Marketing Studio. They'll tell you how your website ranks on Google, on-site SEO, and social media. No commitment to buy anything. You can get your free report by visiting grassrootsdigitalstudio.com/free-website-report. Now back to the episode.
All right, Brian, let's take a look at the portal, because since we last talked, we didn't get into the portal that week because we were talking about the spring game. A couple guys we already know, Jordan Brunson gone, Taj Gary gone. We didn't mention it last time. Oversight, Jared Gibble got in the portal tight end. But since then, man, it's been a flood.
Yep.
Marco Lee in the portal, already committed to South Alabama. Glad he found a place to play. Defensive back Deshaun Elder. Walk-on Jabari Parker out of Highland Springs. Bryce Goodner, which I think that's one going to be our big talking points here. Jalen Hampton and Nadir Thompson. And is DJ Sims, is he in or is he out?
I thought he was back in. Back in as in part of the roster. I think he put himself in and then took himself out of the portal.
Really quick, maybe it was the wrong name. But best of luck to all those guys. First of all, I hope they all land somewhere, able to compete, play the game they love, get their education completed. Um, but I think the one of this list, Brian, we started talking about. You liked the Goodner tape last year. You thought he'd do good, and heard some things like he was working with second team. Then all of a sudden, he's flipped to the defensive line.
Yep.
And the next thing you know, a few weeks later, he's out in the portal, and then he's already committed to UT Chattanooga. So, a little shock.
Little bit, and I think what I'm going to assume in this situation is that given the lack of depth that we were looking at when we were recruiting Bryce, he came in thinking he was going to get some early playing time by this year. And I think between a combination of switching schemes and it not being as good of a fit, also looking at where he was on the depth chart with some other new guys that are coming into the program, he wasn't in the two deep anymore as we were moving through spring. Flipped to the defensive side, looked like he wasn't going to be in the three deep on that side of the ball, and decided, let me see what's out there in the portal.
Yep. And he did. And he went down to an FCS program, and UT Chattanooga, I believe, is a decent program. I know Will Healy coached there for a few years. But excuse me there. But let's just be honest. First of all, I'm glad he landed somewhere. But
Yep.
it also shows you what we're looking for. It's going to be a little bit different because you kind of talked about him. You liked him in that zone scheme that we were in previously. But, well, one room that got cleared up between Brunson, Lee, Gary, and Hampton, running back rooms is now at 7. We're at a good number. We know Jalen Holston is gone next year. Um, are you shocked but still glad Kenji Christian has not entered the portal yet?
I am, because based on what I was hearing, it sounded like he was potentially in the doghouse. I'm glad that either that's not the case or that whatever was going on with that has been cleared up to a point where he feels comfortable saying and the staff feels comfortable with him, moving forward. Whatever the situation, I don't want to speculate on something that I don't have 100% knowledge on. So, but I think, like I said, he's got good talent, and I think between the tackles, he can be that type of player for us in this scheme. Hopefully, I don't know if this year's going to be that time for him, but hopefully by next year, when Holston's out, he can slip into that type of role in this offense. I think that we've already kind of found our all-purpose guy with Thomas. He can be the between the tackle specialist and let guys like King and Chance Black be kind of that more gadget type player in the offense.
All right. If a few months ago I gave you a number of 9.5, would you have said over or under how many guys we have in the portal?
I'd have said probably over at this point.
We're at 8. Um, which right now we have one scholarship to give out to someone in the portal. But do you think this says a lot more about potentially Brent Pry and the culture he's instilling here? That he's obviously he had some hard conversations with guys because we have a number of guys that have left, but
Well,
it's not mass exodus I think we expected.
it's not. I mean, we he had the discussions he had to have, which is we can't have 10 scholarship running backs. So we've had that discussion. That's been settled at least to a point. But it sounds like he had those tough discussions. But it also sounds like we've got some pretty good buy-in by these players that were already on the roster. Whether that ends up being a good thing long term, we'll have to see. But the fact that he's been able to come in, sell his vision on what he sees, and guys want to be a part of that, even if they're not necessarily in the too deep heading into fall, says a lot about, I think, the process that we're going through right now.
You just say process.
I did.
You said process?
The
Oh, the
the
process.
process.
Well, the other thing you kind of got to wonder, and it's this rumor floating around, but the NCAA slower than freaking molasses in the freaking wintertime, is that rumor of the potential extra scholarship somewhere between 3 and 5 for 2022. If that happens, where we're at now is fine.
Yeah.
Because if you say there's 5 extra, even 3 extra, that's perfect, right?
Curtis, is this the part of the program where we're gonna trash the NCAA for about a good 20 to 30 minutes?
Um,
At
probably
least
only
20.
about 10 to 12, maybe 15.
Okay, let's do 15. Let's do
Go
15. All right.
15.
First off, fuck the NCAA.
Yeah. Screw them. Bunch
I
of
mean, okay, so number one, you've been dragging your feet on whether or not you're going to allow some extra scholarships for this year.
after letting everyone play last year on a
Yeah,
whim without
yeah.
even
So
insight.
again, this is information that should have been doled out before May.
Shit, it should have been doled
It's
out before March.
but it should have but absolutely it should have been doled out before the deadline for
Okay,
players to get into the portal to be able to play next year.
true.
We're already past that. We're 11 days past that, so no longer is that even a thing to think about. But we
Go hold,
also have
go hold it down on the scholarship thing because last year it was like everyone can play, and we said on here, okay, that's great for this year. How are you going to get that under control next year? And you would think they would have came out pretty quick and said, because the logical thing is you don't go from having what 100 players, 95 to 100 players on scholarship to getting back down to 85. The thought process is graduate it. If you're going to have, don't go
even if
from
you only do it 1 year, just give some flexibility. But no, Curtis, like always, the NCAA thinks problems are going to take care of themselves.
you mean like the NIL?
Yeah, I do mean like the NIL. The NCAA thinks problems are going to take care of themselves. They don't, and then they just slapdash some shit out there and hope that things go the way they want to, which it never does. So you get situations like this with the scholarships where we're late and we don't know and no one knows and people are playing their cards close to the vest because they're unsure. And then you get situations like the NIL where you've got Jordan Addison entering the portal based off a potential huge NIL deal with USC.
$3 million. He's making more than Pickett is in the NFL.
Yeah, it's wild. And I'm gonna preface everything before I get into this situation with I 100% still support NIL in theory the way it was talked about. I also, and under the current rules, support the players going out there and getting theirs because all they're doing is essentially playing by the rules that everyone else is playing by.
True.
So go get yours, do what you need to do. That being said, when everyone was talking about NIL, what they were more or less talking about is remember that shit Johnny Manziel got in trouble for?
Yeah.
That would have been legal. That would
That's
have
it.
been allowed. That would not have been sanctioned. It was never supposed to be, in theory, a recruiting tool. It was supposed to be once you've been recruited, you're in college, you can use your name, image, and likeness to make money based off your abilities once you've been recruited. The problem is that the NCAA saw this coming for
Toothless.
over 5 years. Over 5 years.
10
And
years.
sat on their damn hands and then let it get to a point where states were passing laws and they no longer had control of it. So once they no longer had control, they slapdashed some dumb shit together and said, here's the policy. And no one knows what really is and is not legal within this framework right now. And really no one gives a shit because the NCAA is toothless.
They're toothless, and right now it's basically the Wild Wild West. They can come down with any sort of stuff, and I know they're claiming they're trying to figure it out and get some rules in place. Well, how can you punish someone based on what we're doing? Well, you can't do this. You guys did this. You didn't tell us we couldn't do this until after we had already did this. No
Yeah,
one's
clarification 8 months later isn't doing shit.
doing jack shit. So should there have been something? Yeah, we've been talking about it. Like legitimately, NIL deals shouldn't have been able to be into place or a offer made until you are signed with a school.
Yeah.
You have to be enrolled in the school, fully signed on scholarship to have the opportunity for an NIL deal. Not this, what the hell's going on at USC trying to get Jordan Addison. Hey, $3 million, come here and play for us. Okay.
And like I said, I'm not necessarily begrudging the folks that are taking advantage of these situations.
Oh, no.
They're just doing what the NCAA has allowed them to do.
Exactly. And
When you're when like when a kid habitually does something wrong, you don't necessarily look at the kid and say, okay, well the kid's bad. Well, if they haven't had a parameter of which they know this is acceptable behavior and this is not, I mean, they're going to take advantage of that. I have no problem with you taking advantage of the rules that are there. But at some point, the NCAA didn't think, all right, well, if we're going to move forward with this, how can we move forward with this in a way that is not only equitable for the players, which is the most important part of this, but also keeps the spirit of
the intent of the law.
level playing field as much as can be in the college game.
Exactly. And will it be self-corrected in the next 2 to 3 years? Yeah. But you're going to see
To a point, it will be.
it
Because
will be.
like I know you made the point earlier, at some point it's not going to be worth for those boosters to drop $3 million on every good player.
No.
Because you're gonna have enough bust where their investment is not returned.
Shit on. It's
Yeah.
ROI. It's return on investment. If you don't, or return on equity, whatever you want to call it. If you're out there and you're a big booster and you're worth, 80, $100 million, rich people do not like to lose money. So if you're this guy giving NIL deals 10 million a year and these kids aren't worth a shit playing, eventually you're going to look at the school and the NIL program and be like, fuck y'all.
Yeah.
I'm not giving y'all any more money. Why? It's been 5 years. I wasted $50 million. We got 2 good players out of it. Why do I need to pay you?
Yeah, but I'll tell you where the problem's going to come though, and we're already seeing it mostly with the Jordan Addison situation. It's
Yeah.
schools like Pitt or schools like Virginia Tech that develop a talent, they show out, and then a big dog comes in there and can throw $3 million at them for 2 years.
Yeah.
And reap the benefits. They don't have to worry about as much of that unknown factor as you will with a high school athlete. Yeah, they might be 5 stars, but even the hit rate on 5 stars isn't foolproof, right?
Oh no.
So at that point, yeah, most 5 stars are still probably going to get some money thrown at them, but you're not going to see a ton of 4 stars get big deals like that.
No,
but what you will see is the high 3 and 4 star go to a school like Pitt or like Virginia Tech or like NC State and play for 2 to 3 years, and now all of a sudden their star is rising, and you'll see those big schools like your Bamas, your USCs, your Oklahomas, your Georgias, and they'll have a booster drop $1 million or $2 million out there and say, hey, come play for us for a year or two.
Now but that's a risk reward, right? $1 million is a lot of money. $500,000 is a lot of money.
Yeah.
But the risk reward on that for that player is you're going to a whole new school, whole different culture, potentially whole different system. And if you're one of those guys who are that highly ranked where it's like, dude, you're going to go in the first 4 rounds of the draft. So you're probably going to have a few $1 million guaranteed to you regardless.
Yeah.
Do you go to a school, take the NIL deal, but what if it just absolutely cripples your stock? It's a huge risk reward. So what's going to happen in that case? Yep. Alabama comes and steals a tight end from Virginia Tech who was showing out, right? He goes to Alabama, does nothing. Instead of getting drafted, he's sitting on the end of the line, undrafted free agent, barely on a practice squad.
but he's
So
got
those
$2 million in the bank.
two, what's 2 million? Well, hold on. That's the piece though. If you were going to be a top 100 prospect, what's $2 million? It's marginal, right?
I get that. I get that. But money in my pocket today is better
I
than
mean,
money in my pocket in 2 years.
well, what's going
I
to
mean,
happen?
I'm just trying to tell you that that's how a
No,
lot of
no, of
players are going
course
to
it will
see it.
happen. But what I'm saying is, there's also going to be stories, and there's going to be where other coaches, such as the smaller schools, are going to be able to say, "Cool, you can go do that. I understand. Take the money. Don't forget what happened to these three guys." And the kids got to sit there and be like, "Well, shit," like because there's still going to be chances to make what 6 figures potentially at schools like Pitt, Virginia Tech, NC State.
Really good players could, at the upside of that, could potentially make something like that, especially over the course of their entire career.
Yep. So it's a cluster F. Hopefully, in some way, it gets resorted by the NCAA. We could possibly be 50 years old when that happens. So that just gives you their timeline.
Yeah, the NCAA saw the Jordan Addison situation. They were like, maybe we should send out some clarifying documentation. That'll settle things down.
No,
That's what's needed right now is some clarifying documentation of what the rules actually are.
no,
Because
they're more
obviously everyone's abiding by them.
they're morons. And I mean, what's the NCAA? What's it going to take to control something like this? Is you got to have a powerhead figure who will lay hammers down on people. And there's only a few of them, and have the respect of the collegiate community to do it.
Well,
In my opinion, I've
what
told you several times, let Nick Saban be the NCAA commissioner.
we need to have a commissioner and a governing body that is supported by the conferences, and we don't have that right now. The conferences have zero faith in what the NCAA is trying to do as a governing body,
Mm-hmm.
to the point where they're pretty much trying to do it on their own. The problem is that under the current rules and the way things are trending, I'm not sure that that's a good thing for college football if you like college football more or less in its current format.
Well, I like college football better from 20 years ago, but that's just me.
Yeah, like I said, y'all know me. I'm not an old head that's out there saying, "All right, screw those players. The scholarship is enough.
Oh no,
Screw those players. If you transfer, you got to sit out a year." You know, I've been as pro player
have been, and you
as
brought
most
me to
people
your
can
side,
be.
and you brought
As
me to your side.
as most people can be. I am pro player movement. I am pro player being able to get money based on their abilities. But that's not. There's a difference between that and what's going on right now, which is more or less a pay for play situation that's
Exactly.
exclusive to certain players. Because this isn't
Certain players and
pay for
certain.
play for everyone. It's a recruiting tool, and it's a tool to get people to transfer to your university.
It's almost like there should just be a draft, and we should have salaries.
Someone proposed that a while back. I wonder who did that.
I don't know. Go check back 2020, folks, when we were.
Again, if they do move to that model, the semi pro model, there needs to be a draft because all you're doing is, licensing the collegiate brand and image anyway. You're
Exactly.
not necessarily officially a part of the university anymore, so you might as well have a draft, right?
Yeah. Only fair. Also, only fair when certain schools who always get 65 5 stars are sitting out there trying to get scraps. Although
Yeah.
that will never happen. There's too many people in play that will never allow that to happen because there would be too much parity, and parity some conferences and some schools do not like.
Well, the NCAA better act sooner. They're going to get cut out of their own money making wagon.
You damn right by that. And the quicker the Power Five gets that together, it's going to be hilarious. All right, Brian, let's talk about this. This happened this week. It was first reported by Pete Thamel. Basically, ACC meetings going on this week, and it's under discussion that divisions could be eliminated as early as 2023. Um, Reported later by David Teal, one of the most popular models is a 3 fixed, and you play the other 5 teams rotating every year. What do you think of it?
I'd prefer 2 and 6, but I like this better than divisions. So
Yes.
whatever we end up with is a
It's a
better
win.
for a better good start than what we're doing now. Aside from not wanting to play BC every year, which I'm hoping that one of the three is not BC,
Good Lord, I hope not.
I'm sick of BC.
Yes. We will play them every other year. It's fine.
Yeah, yeah,
It's fine.
we'll still get up there to Chestnut Hill every 4 years. They'll get down to Blacksburg every 4 years. That's good enough.
That's good enough.
Yeah, give me UVA, give me Miami, and give me one of either Georgia Tech or UNC if we're
All
going
right.
three.
All right. I'm with you on the first two. I lean just because you've got to kind of keep it balanced. I lean screw that, go Louisville
Okay, I
because
like Louisville. I've got no beef with Louisville being that third.
well, my model, and I've told Brian about this. The model I've got in my head is thinking geography and distances because to me, everybody needs one long travel, like one travel where you've got to go a long ass ways. That would be Miami for us. That would be us for Miami. West Virginia's not joining, Robbie. West Virginia's not joining. They're in the Big 12 crowd. So, like, and then you have a medium somewhere between what 5-6 hours for your fan base to drive. That's Louisville. Louisville is roughly 5.5, 6.5 hours from Blacksburg, and then one short distance or a short a distance as possible. So that's why I'd go Louisville over Carolina or GT, just because it's going to be you got to
GT is
keep it.
right at the border of that 5 to 6 that you put out there.
Yeah, GT's right at the board. It's about 7.5 from Blacksburg. So it's still not a bad drive. You want to go down there for if it's a 3:30 game, you leave at 6 o'clock in the morning from Blacksburg or from this area. You be down there by 1:30, tailgate a few hours, go to the game. Right? It's a reasonable drive.
Yep.
So that's kind of what I'm seeing. But the biggest thing about this, everybody wins. Everybody wins. We as fans win, right?
Yep.
We as fan wins because we know every other year we're going to play, or every 2 years we play everybody in conference. We play everybody in conference. That's awesome. You talk about planning to go, maybe going to Clemson or FSU for a trip for an away game. You know when it's going to be,
Yep.
and it's not like waiting 6-7 years for that to happen. And it also, me and Brian were looking at like everybody's been talking about, well, the Atlantic's been the dominant conference. Beginning of the ACC, the Coastal from roughly 2005 to 2011, the Coastal had the two better teams numerous occasions. Numerous occasions.
Yep.
So what we're looking at now in the last 10 years, it's been Clemson and Florida State, while the Coastal's just been the wheel of destiny.
Yeah, we said it earlier. The Atlantic has had usually the two best teams in a given year. The Coastal has usually had 3, 4, and 5.
Mm-hmm.
So the Coastal might be a little deeper, but they are more in the middle of the pack versus at the top end of the conference.
It's true. But the whole piece about this, especially if you're looking at a playoff model that's getting larger, you want your two best teams on the stage at the end of the
Yep.
season. If a team is 12-0 and a team's 11-1 or even 10-2 playing each other, if it's a good competitive game, you're likely going to get two in.
Yep.
That's why you're going to this model. And by all means, if you do the scheduling right, you want Miami and VT, you want them to play. You take a look at the 10 years ago, Saturday afternoons pulling 3.5, 4 million people as a 3:30 game. You want Florida State and Clemson to play. You want the good teams to play each other because when it's the known brands who are good and ranked, people turn on their TVs to watch that game. So it's a win for fans. It's a win for players because the players, if you stay there 4 years, you're going to play every team away and home.
Yep.
You're going to experience every atmosphere in the ACC, which is awesome.
I'm with you. I'm with you. I think it's going to be a good move for the ACC as a whole, and I think getting rid of divisions is, like you said, good for fans. Fans get to see the Hokies play teams that they, sometimes wait 4, 5, 6 years to play, which is asinine under the current format.
Yeah, completely asked. What it took us like 7 years to play Syracuse.
Yeah, it took us a while to play Syracuse. Took us a while to get NC State, um,
Louisville.
Louisville. Yeah,
By the way, shout out John Earl. You know how many times NC State and Duke have played each other since in the last 18 years?
how many?
Four. They literally are 40. They're what 30 minutes from each other. They played 4 times in 14 years.
So we played West Virginia pretty much the same number of times. They played a down the street rival in the same
In
conference.
the more, more, huh? All right, let's roll on. Let's talk about the draft real quick, Brian. With the Hokies in the draft, the Hokies get 4 players drafted. Um, James Mitchell, 177 to Detroit. Amari Barno, 189 to Carolina. Luke Tenuta, 209 to Buffalo. And Lasita Smith, 215 to Arizona. Of the other names we've had on our list and we talked about, who are you shocked that did not get drafted?
Did not get drafted. Jermaine Waller. I thought he would at least get drafted just based off the earlier tape and what he did in the front half of 2021. I think the injuries and the back half performance as a result of those injuries, along with, I think in some ways Caleb Farley, going so high and then being injured so early in his
Mm-hmm.
career. I think some of that is playing into that. But I think Waller could potentially get in there and stick. I think Detroit's not an awful fit for him with his skill set. Big thing for him is he's got to stay healthy now.
Absolutely. Jermaine was shocked to me because I said 6 guys would get drafted. He was one shock to me. The other was Brock. As it got later, I thought center versatile guard guy someone would just draft him just like this is just a shot. If he develops right, we've got a swing guy on the inside, right?
Yeah.
Um, so I was shocked he didn't get drafted. I mean, he went to Cleveland. Good spot for him. They just got rid of J.C. Treader, who was a pretty experienced. So there's a couple guys in front of him, but there's not like that one big, you know, Pro Bowl, solid veteran type guy you're not going to beat out. Talking about the other ones, we already talked about Jordan Williams going to Miami. Trey Turner goes to Las Vegas. Blackshear to Buffalo. Changa Hodge to Arizona. John Parker Romo catches on with the Saints. Now let's flip back. Were you shocked that James Mitchell went before anybody else?
No, because I knew that he had probably the biggest upside of any player, just based on his size, his skill. He's got pretty decent tape out there. We didn't utilize him the way that we probably should have, but the tape that is out there on him is good. He's got the size, he's got the measurables. He wasn't able to do, some of the stuff at the combine, but overall he's been able to show his measurables before, so that wasn't as big of a deal. So that doesn't shock me. It doesn't necessarily shock me that Barno was the next one off the board because, again, another physical trait player, versatile player that you can do some different things with and has some upside at either, a heavy blitzing 4-3 scheme or, potentially an edge player in a 3-4 or a situational rusher in a traditional 4-3 as a defensive end.
Oh yeah, he's one of those guys. If you're running a system where you have like a wide nine, you stick him at 9 his first year and say go, or you put him on special teams and say go try to block the punt. My shocker of all these was Lasita Smith going 215. Lasita Smith could become a starter in the NFL. At worst, he is going to be a swing guard that can play either side of the line solidly and make spot starts. Him going that late, especially where he was ranked, because if you look, he was a top 10 guard on so many guys' big boards, and it shows you the value of the guards. but it also shows you. Me and Brian were talking about. He's a Colts fan. I'm a Niners fan. We really don't have spots for guys who are potential starters. We don't. What we have spots for, and it's how we kind of drafted, right, Brian? We took a guy out of Fordham and a guy out of UTEP on the offensive line because they're looked at developing. Why do we take those guys? Because is anybody in their right mind going to sign a kid out of Fordham or a kid out of UTEP to their roster as the season begins?
Yeah, I'm with you.
So what happens? They go on your practice squad. A guy like Lacita Smith, if the Colts or the 49ers pick him up, he could fit in our schemes. If he's essentially the fifth or sixth guard and we have to cut him, he's not coming back to you. Yep. He's not. It's just simple as that.
True.
So, who do you think I feel like I look at it. I'm glad 4 guys win. I'm glad all these guys signed. Anyone stick out to you as maybe in 2 or 3 years we're talking about them in a good way?
I'm going to stick with my train here, but I think Blackshear is going to be a guy that sticks on a roster even though he's undrafted.
Yeah. I feel like what they do in Buffalo, he could be the gadget guy up there. So I could definitely see that. And hey, the old special teams coach, Yabes, he knows how to get kickers, man. He's got a lot of kickers in the league right now. So one of them might stick. All right. Brian, did you watch the Kentucky Derby Saturday?
I did. That was a good one.
Crazy race. The was it a drone angle as they were making the turn? Have you seen that picture?
Yeah.
The way that Rich King came up, right? No, Rich Strike, excuse me.
Rich Strike, yeah.
80-1 odds. He literally got in because somebody got scratched like 2 days before. 80-1 odds wins the Derby. Also, that horse is mean. If you did not see him afterwards, literally biting people, faces, he has an attitude. But Mike Leach made a great tweet and a great statement. He said that horse winning the Kentucky Derby is a good example of why an expanded playoff is needed. That horse hadn't won all the races leading up, but he got the key word, his chance, and it happened. Right?
Yeah. And we talked about this. Sometimes you just need one. The difference is that with a playoff, it's not just one, right? Like it's not just one shot. You got to put a little run together. So there's a little difference there, but having a seat at the table is important. And having a seat at the table gives you your long shot, right? You're not favored to win. It's not likely that you win. You're a long shot for a reason, just like Rich Strike was a long shot for a reason. Sometimes all the cards come together and the long shot wins, or the long shot can make a run that you normally don't make. It's very unlikely that a 12 seed would win a college football playoff, but it helps long term that 12th seed be able to consistently compete and potentially build towards a scenario where they could win a college football playoff.
Exactly. Do I expect Rich Strike to win the Triple Crown? No, I don't at all. No. But if he was the 12 and he played the 5 and he caught the game of his life, there you go. That's all you need.
Now, I mean, everybody's talking about Rich Strike. Even if he doesn't win the Triple Crown, everybody's still talking about Rich Strike.
Forever. So in that case, you kind of look at the college football playoff and think, number 5 Alabama has to play somebody with a week to prepare and they lose. It's forever going to be talked about. It's Boise State, Oklahoma of 2007. That game's still talked about to this day. when that upset happened.
Yep.
And that's all you want. That's all most 85% of the college football world wants, right? We just want a chance to sit at the table. Just one seat. You put us at the end there. We just want a chance to sit at the table.
Yeah, because I mean, at some point, depending on where we're heading, um, the seats are going to get even more difficult to obtain.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's so true.
So the more of them we have, the better.
Very, very true, my friend. All right. Before we shut it down tonight, guy we chat with off and on all the time blew up over the weekend. Our boy, the Diablo fan account deferred walk on, tweet of the year in my opinion. But and it's the truth. This is the truth. Men will literally sit around and name random sports players for 2 hours instead of going to therapy. Yes, because Sid Bream was very close to being out in 1990 with the Bonds. I got a Sid Bream card somewhere, by the way.
Nice. Mine was Dante Bichette in the 1999 season.
Oh my god! Well,
where he had like a unbelievable slash, but was like -2.
Minus 1.2 in WAR.
Yeah.
He had like 333, 36 homers, 120 RB. But it's true. Listen, you get a room full of guys, and if they're all of the same age or about a 10-year span, we literally can sit here and name and go to any sport too. That's the funny part. It's not just like, oh, it's just football. Nah, pretty sure we can go basketball. And hey, remember Vernon Maxwell that time he went into the stands? About 8 years before Malice at the Palace, Vernon Maxwell.
Yeah.
Went into the stands about to fight the guy. But that tweet to today is at almost 52,000 likes, 18,000 plus quote tweets. And it's so funny. Guy I listened to 49ers podcast, and I've DM'd a couple times. Great guy named John Chapman. It got to him. John lives out in San Jose. And a tweet from Blacksburg, Virginia made its way to the other side of the country. And who knows where else in this world?
Yeah. It's out there in the ether now. Well done, sir. Well done.
Forever. Brian, in the last hour and 25 minutes, has anything broken?
Nothing that I see here, buddy. I think we're ready to kick it.
Other than who won the NBA game, the Bucks came back and won. Wow, don't talk to Mike McDaniel tomorrow. All right, well, if that's it, let's wrap up this episode of the Boundary Corner podcast. I'm Curtis Wilson.
I'm Brian Siegler.
Visit our website at boundarycornerbt.com to listen to all of our episodes. While you're there, don't forget to follow us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, subscribe on our YouTube, and or your favorite podcast source, including Spotify, Amazon, and Apple Podcasts. As always, we let our buddy Jason Long play us out. Check him out this weekend at the Grandin Farmers Market in Roanoke. Also catch him on Spotify and Apple Music, especially with his new song, Old Man Yelling at the TV. We thank you for listening. And as always, let's go.
Hokies.